The average viewer probably doesn't even know what I'm holding in my hand, but what we're looking at right now are the last 100 written pages of Napoleon Hill. From his typewriter to my study, Napoleon Hill was certainly ahead of his time. November 3rd, 1986, I met W. Clement Stone, and he offered me the opportunity to finish, complete, and update Napoleon Hill's last written work. It all goes back to a conversation that I had years ago with Ambassador Andy Young. Here's an individual who walked side by side with Dr. Martin Luther King. He said, me and Dr. King, we integrated the lunch counter, but we failed to integrate the dollar. And I said, Mr. Ambassador, how does anybody integrate the dollar? And he says, well, somebody has got to give us the keys, the qualities on how to compete effectively in a capitalistic society. Hopefully, this will be the manual on just how to do that.
I just want to thank you, Professor Kimbro, because I know how in demand you are, and I know you are such an influential person. You know, with all the books that you've done, your academic, you know, I know your story so well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know about that. I know you did your studies, and you did your doctorate as well in, your dissertation was to do with wealth and poverty in you know, countries of growth.
Yeah, that's me all over. That's all I've ever done.
Yeah. But I'm so grateful to speak to you, because you've studied so much into historically, you know, how as a community, how we've just done so well considering the past experiences, you know, especially, you know, the African American experience and a lot of us all around the world. History is basically designated where we are right now, but as you said,
I look back and I would always say about my mother and father,
yeah,
wow, what their eyes have seen over the course of their life.
well,
Now I got to reflect what my eyes have seen since 1950 to current, and changes, and I mean, just life in general for African Americans, but for anybody. I mean, the changes. So I'm like you. I'm eternally grateful, and I know the best is yet to come. We've got a lot of things in store for both of us.
Yeah, for sure. But what you've done with your writing and your best-selling books, and you know, I stuck my book together just especially for you.
Yeah.
I stuck it together.
Oh my God, I gotta say, come on, girl, what are you doing? I gotta give me your address. I gotta put one in the mail.
I'm waiting.
Book. You're gonna send me that, and I'm gonna send you a real live book. I didn't even know you have all the pages. I mean,
oh, you know, I can't put this book down. I know you've got so many other books as well. You know, the affirmations and you know, the wealth choice and all that. But this one, what makes a great, of course. But this one is to study. You know, I can study this for the rest of my life. I can study this for the rest of my life. And I still wouldn't have enough, you know, maybe I'll take it with me.
Take it to the next phase. Yeah.
You know, what I want to share, because I do the as you said, you know, I do the neurolinguistics, and I do mindset coaching. And for me, my dream is to help people like myself, because I don't think we see enough, especially Black women in the personal development space and in the coaching space. You know, we've often, as you say in your book, the control is within us. You know, it's the instinct that makes the difference. But I wanted to take you back to, you know, you sacrificed so much to get this to get this out to us with us, because it's an incredible story how you got
Well,
that.
you're in my study right now, and
Yeah.
if I walked in the back rooms, I could give you two manuscripts. I can show you the manuscript Napoleon
Have you got
Hill's
them?
action.
You can put your hand on them. Oh my goodness. This is incredible. They're the original 100 pages.
I don't know if you can see the
Wow.
title.
Hold
It's
on.
backwards. Yeah.
Oh,
Blacks are growing rich by
is that the
Napoleon
original
Hill.
title that he had?
This is Napoleon Hill's manuscript.
The original, yeah, that's what he was going to call it.
These are the 100 pages I was given.
Wow. That's crazy.
Last thing he ever worked on.
Yeah, yeah, because I was reading about that. But you were working on your own book, right? What makes a great
Yeah,
great?
I was working on, you mentioned what makes the great great, and show you this too.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I blew this article up, but this was the article that was in Success magazine that W. Clement Stone read and called me up.
Yeah, because you were working on your book.
I was asked to write a few articles, and this was the article, A Black Sales Hero.
Yeah.
He read it and he called me up out of the blue.
Yeah. And I love the story of what your wife said to you.
So what you can do, you can tell folks that you saw everything, man.
I love that story.
Yeah, and that's how everything got started, because I'm here and I can go back and show you my manuscript that I was working on. But that was the article, because Success Magazine contacted me, asked me to write 3 articles, and that was the one that made the magazine. And W. Clement Stone called me up.
That's huge.
And the rest is history. And then Harvey McKay called me. And that's how everything got started.
And what made you, I was thinking about this, what made you, because you were working so hard on your book, What Makes a Great Great, because that was a huge question, why some fail and why some are successful, and that question, what makes the great great? So you were working so hard on that book. So when you got called in by W. Clement Stone and you had that baby of yours that you were working on so much.
Yeah.
What was that?
While my wife was in the car.
Your wife was in the car and she had a message for you, didn't she, before you went in?
Yeah, because I was in his office close to 2 hours.
And she was sitting there.
And we had to rent a car. And it was right there in Chicago. I parked on the street and I said, Pat, I don't know how long it'll be, but she said, I'll just wait right here. And so I was in there, and huge palatial offices were being, and he was surrounded by his lieutenants, and I didn't have the slightest idea what he had in mind. And got in those office, one of his assistants came and got me and took me back to his office, and he introduced himself, signed several books for me, gave me books. And so he said he had a proposition for me, and I don't know what he had in mind, but he said, you're not the first person to go around the country interviewing successful African Americans. Now, wrap your head around this, because even after the book was finished, right before the book was finished, and I can show you a galley copy, my publisher flew me to Minneapolis to spend a couple of days with Harvey McKay, because at the time, he had the #1 business book in America.
Yeah.
And he said, Dennis, we want you to spend a couple of days with Harvey, and just think of the folks that you want to, write testimonials for this book. And he put me in a room and he said, give me about 40 names. Don't worry how we're going to reach them. We'll reach them. We'll get them to write a testimonial.
And so about an hour later, I gave him the 40 names, and that was basically the meeting that we had. I jumped back on a plane, flew back to Atlanta, and maybe about 3 or 4 days into the process, he called me up and he said, I think we got a slight problem. And I said, what's that? He said, we can't get anybody to endorse the book. You see, that was the thinking of Black America at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
That was the thinking. Who's this guy talking about success? Doesn't he know that it's tough out here for Black folks? Is he a conservative? Is he a Republican? I mean, who is this guy? Blah, blah, blah. And even when the book was released, a few of the testimonials and the folks, a few of the reviews, they were negative.
Yeah.
But slowly but surely, the momentum started, and folks started, and the more they heard me speak, and the more, and I said, listen, this is yours, and let me show you this.
Yeah, yes, let's see it.
Okay, so if I took this camera,
yeah,
this is where I do my work, okay?
Yeah.
But if I go into the back of my study, that's where all my books are.
Okay.
It's like a mini library back there.
Yeah.
But you're right here where I work and where I write.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can see it, but there's about 30 books right there.
I can see them in the corner right there.
Yeah, there's about 30 books right there. And those are the books that had the most profound impact on my life.
Yeah.
Okay? This book, The Achieving Society by David McClellan.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I read this book more than 30 years ago.
Yeah.
David McClellan, for about 25 years, he was a professor at Harvard. And just let me give you the back flap to this book.
Yeah. I'm making notes.
He says that every generation, every culture, every tribe, every people, every group, every race has at least one individual who will discover the keys to success, place those keys in a single volume for countless generations to come.
Okay. Yeah.
And when I read it, I said, well, obviously he doesn't know what he's talking about because there's no such book for Black Americans.
Yeah.
And that's what I decided to do.
Yeah. Wow.
That's what I decided to do. So when you take this,
The Achieving Society,
and combine it with this, that's what you get in your hand.
But you know what I love about the book is it's like, you said it in the introduction, it's like a friend talking to you. Because I know before that you didn't write it that way, did you? You wrote it a different way, and then they sent it back, didn't they? And they said, can you write it?
Yeah, and I can show you the letters that they sent me and everything. I can go back and show you some of the letters. I mean, I can show you the actual manuscript. They read it. They read about 90 pages, threw it in the trash, and then I wrote about 120 some odd. And I was, you know what? And I wasn't feeling it at the time. I mean,
you wasn't.
I was still working on what makes the great great.
Yeah.
And I'm here, and my wife came and she said, well, when are you going to start working on the other book? And I said, Pat, I'm not feeling it. I mean, they want me, come on, man, this is the book right here. And she said, well, you better contact them because they think you're back here in Atlanta working on that book.
Yeah.
And it was all due to that one conversation with her.
Incredible.
I said, all right, let me get busy. So I'm not saying my heart wasn't in it when I wrote those first 90 or 120 pages, but when I had the subsequent conversation and it clicked. Yeah. After that, I could have done anything. I said, man, I think I'm a pretty good writer. I think, man, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But when I took that piece of advice, and I sat back and I thought about it. Okay, yeah, let me do it that way.
Yeah.
And it changed my writing style overnight.
That style, it because when I read, it's about how it makes you feel. And I think that's part of the reason why I've been talking to everyone about this book. And it gets to your heart. It makes you ask yourself questions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is it that I'm living for? You know, what am I, you know, all the questions that you've got all the way through it. And I could spend like a week just looking at one paragraph, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and because every time you look at it, because you're changing as a person, you get something
Mm-hmm.
different out of it, you know, and all the incredible people that you've written about, you know, Earl Graves and Madam Walker, you know, Carlson with the heart, you know, with the surgery, and people that have come from incredible background, like Carver being sold for a horse.
Mm-hmm.
Sold for a horse. And but not only that, but you live this. Because
Mm-hmm.
I know that you sacrificed so much. You know, you've already mentioned part of it, you know, when you and your wife came up in the car. But you know, from the moment you made that decision to take on this Think and Grow Rich, you just dedicated so much of your life to it.
It was
You want to tell us?
it was a life's journey. It's still a life journey. I'm still living it. But you know, we are all connected by a very small, tiny, single thread.
Yeah,
And I look back when I was a young boy and the conversations that I had with my father, and everything counts. I mean, everything really counts from a young man with my father, a child, elementary school. My father made me and my brother, you know, watch that television show Biography. We had to watch Biography.
yeah,
Mike Wallace was the host, and that was the only exception he made that allowed us to watch television on a school night. Because we could not watch television on a school night, but we had to watch that show. It only came on for 30 minutes. And after it was over with, my father, he quizzed us. He quizzed me and my brother. Okay, what'd you learn? Okay, they had a dream, right? All right. They encountered some obstacles, didn't they? I said, yeah. Did they quit? No, they didn't quit. I say, so what do you got a dream? What are you gonna
do? Oh.
And oh yeah, that was my dad. That was my dad. There were two experiences I had with him. He was my hero, but I look back and I had more than two, but two stand out. You know, requiring me and my brother to watch that show. And then when the 1960 World's Fair in New York was open, and that was when the United Nations was built and developed, and they had tours of the UN General Assembly. So I'll never forget, it was an Easter Sunday. We took a tour because it was a part of the World's Fair. And then after that, my father took me, my brother, my mother, we all went out to a nice swanky dinner on Easter Sunday. But it was during that tour of the General Assembly floor at the United Nations, and I'm looking, every delegate had his or her, well, not that many females, but his or her own table, and they had their nameplate on the desk. And I kept seeing the three letters at the end of the name, PhD, PhD, PhD. And so I don't know how many times I saw it. I had to ask my father. And I said, what are those three letters? How come, what do those three letters mean? And he said, oh, they're a doctor. And my father could see it in my eyes that I thought somebody that gives you a shot or somebody that blah, 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 this, that. And he said, no, son, it's not that type of doctor. I said, well, what type of doctor is it? It says they just have the highest degree, college degree that they can earn.
Yeah.
It was on that General Assembly floor. I wasn't even 12 years old. Told my father, that's a degree I'm going to earn.
Wow.
And when I finally got it,
Yes, you did.
you know, went by his gravesite, and I said,
Northwestern.
he had transitioned by then.
Oh.
I stood by his gravesite and I said, Dad, we did it.
Did it.
We did it.
It just goes to show you that, you know, you talk about the subconscious mind, you talk about the, you know, like Napoleon Hill, the intelligence out there, infinite intelligence, how even at a young age, you can know what you want. And it's a powerful thing. Yeah, even younger than that. You can know.
Because whatever you want wants you. I mean, it's we are in, like I said, okay, I'm in a different state, a different phase of my life, but whatever you want wants you. It was the tire looking for the car. It was the bell looking for the phone.
Yeah.
I mean, to get that inner connectedness. And, you know, I tell folks all the time, you may not have heard of Napoleon Hill, but you've been impacted by Napoleon Hill. Because that whole law of attraction, Hill introduced it in 1919. But Hill's writings aren't sacrosanct. I mean, you got to look at the writers that influenced Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
And I got them all back there. Number one at the top of the list is Orison Swett Marden.
Oh.
Hill couldn't get enough of Orison Swett Marden. And this is Marden's magnus opus right here. This book is so powerful, I got 2 copies of it.
Uh-huh.
But this is the individual Napoleon Hill was reading for growth and development.
People always mention Dale Carnegie, don't they? They always mention Dale Carnegie. What's that say?
It's called Pushing to the Front.
Pushing to the Front.
By Orison Swett Marden.
Oh my goodness.
Hill wasn't the first. So he's reading Orison Swett Marden.
Yeah.
And Hill is reading Phineas Quimby. Have you ever read anything by Phineas Quimby?
No. No.
All right. Phineas, P-H-I, N as in nut.
Yeah.
E-A-S.
Yeah.
Phineas. Quimby. Q as in quiet. U, I, M as in Mary, B as in boy, Y as in yes.
I've got that.
Phineas Quimby. All right, so I got every book Quimby wrote.
19th century or something? Quimby manuscript. So
all the folks that when Napoleon Hill, he was on the edge of his seat, just reading and absorbing and this and that, nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of what I've done with Black America.
Yeah.
And I tell folks I'm a Johnny come lately, okay? So here it is, 1897, W.E.B. Du Bois writes a book called The Negro in Business.
Yeah.
Okay. That book is more than 800 pages long. And what Du Bois did, he taught at Atlanta University, and during the summer months, he got on a train and went from like northern Florida all the way up to Boston. Every stop along the way would be, he would get off and he would interview Black business owners. So that book was called The Negro in Business, all right? 15 years later, Booker T. Washington writes a book and he calls it The Negro in Business. Now take a good look, girlfriend. Only 25,000 copies were printed.
Wow.
And I'm holding one of the 25,000 in my hand right now.
That's gold.
Booker T. Washington.
Booker T. Washington.
Yep.
Wow.
I dare not highlight it. I dare not do anything.
Oh my goodness. You see, this is it. This is how it comes to us, isn't it? You know, because you're
And
the
you can see it was published in 1907.
because your book was published in 1991, right?
Booker T, yeah, 1991.
Yours,
For Think and Grow Rich, a Black choice. So
yeah. But yours is the first ever Black self-help for the Black community, right? You're the first.
well, like I said, you can't say that because everything comes into
It comes around.
yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Although there wasn't a single volume with all the keys, I had to get a key over there, and I had to get a key over there, and there's a key, and there's a key. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You could say that, but listen, we're not Jonathan Livingston Seagull. No one lives alone.
Yeah.
We're gonna sooner or later, we're gonna stand on somebody's shoulder.
Yeah. And that's the thing.
And I can tell you stories of how, I mean, all the folks. I remember I was in New York, and I had a book signing in New York. And Ayanna Van Zant came through the book signing, self-esteem so low, she couldn't even look me in the eye. I remember when Eric Thomas was eating out of garbage cans until somebody gave him a copy of Think and Grow Rich, a Black choice.
This is
so no one survives alone. We are all interconnected by the grace of God.
Yeah, it's so true.
By the grace of God.
God, for sure.
So there's your Lord and Savior. He's being crucified. He's just, I mean, we're talking moments away from his transition, and arguably the last words that he utters, he looks down and he says, "Son, behold thy mother. Woman, behold thy son." And that's all Martin Luther King has ever done. Martin Luther King said, the greatest love in the world is not between an adult and a child. It is not between a parent and a son and daughter. He said the greatest love in the world is between a man, a woman, and a child on the other side of the world. That is the greatest. And this is all about love.
Yeah.
Only four things in life you need: something to do, something to hope for, something to love, and something to believe in. And you'd be shocked how few people get that right. Look, your days are numbered, man. What are you doing? Just the idea that you are here, you came here with a purpose. Now the Bible says, complete thy noble task. In other words, do what you've been sent here to do.
And we've all got something to do. All of us
Exactly.
have something to do.
I'm not perfect and you're not perfect, but the bottom line, we are both perfect.
Yeah.
Why? Because we've been created in his image. He's not created in ours.
Yeah.
How can you improve upon perfection? And once you realize that, yes, you are perfect, created in that image, what are you praying for? When arguably the greatest prayer you could ever utter is to take that one finger, Rabina, and put it on your lips. That's the greatest prayer, is just be still. Just be still. Peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. He was asleep in the boat, and he couldn't believe that his disciples woke him up in the middle of a storm. And they saw a side of Jesus they never saw before. And he was like, you've seen 50 million miracles. You know the power that you have. I was asleep. Why are you coming to me with this? But Master, the winds and the waves are raging and the winds is howling. And we can't get it right. Yeah, it says peace be still, but Jesus said, peace, be still. In other words, this is no time for peace. You're going to see a side of me you never saw before. Peace, you better get out of here, peace, because I ain't feeling it today.
Yeah.
Now go use the power that you have. Use the power that you've been given.
That's incredible.
Like I said, man, each of us were chosen. You didn't choose to be here, and I didn't choose to be here, but you were chosen. So complete your noble task. Do what you were sent here to do.
What would you say to people who they feel that they don't know what they're sent here to do? You know, because I do these like work. I've been writing about, in my gratitudes, I write about what it is that I really want, you know, for my family and for myself and my purpose. And I've slowly gravitated towards this, you know, the personal and professional development. But it's about helping people understand, like you say in the book, is that we've got this potential, we've got this perfection within us, but it's buried amongst all the other stuff that is bombarding us. And so we have low self-esteem. We don't think we're good enough. We don't think we're here for a purpose. How do you help people push through that?
Well, that's the mental malpractice that we perform on each other. That's all it is. If you broke your arm, say you broke your left arm, okay, and you went to a doctor and they said, well, Rena, unfortunately, we got to perform surgery on that left arm. But after the surgery, girl, you're going to be good as new. So they wheel you in, they perform the surgery, you're in recovery, and you wake up and you look down at your left arm, and your left arm is still the same because they operated on the right arm. Well, you would probably sue that doctor for what? Malpractice. But what about the mental malpractice that we perform on each other and no one says a thing?
Oh.
And no one says a thing. And no one says a thing. I mean, if Adam probably didn't eat that apple, I mean, that's the only role model that we would ever need, because we wouldn't know anything about fear. Adam, where art thou? I was hiding. Why were you hiding, Adam? I was afraid. Adam, who taught you fear? I didn't teach you fear. Who taught you that? And that was the beginning of the ego mind. And what is ego? It's any belief other than God. I tell my students all the time, what came first, the chicken or the egg? And they banter about with each other, the egg, the chicken. And they finally asked me, and I said, neither. God came first.
Yeah. Yeah.
God came first. God came first. So until there's so many lessons to be embraced, but always go back to the center. Always go back to the center. David, holding thy rod and thy staff, I and the Father are one. And what do they say? It says man wasn't invented for the Sabbath was invented for man. So remember the Sabbath. Well, every day is the Sabbath. All right. If you're a Christian, the Sabbath is Sunday. If you're Jewish, the Sabbath is Saturday. If you're Muslim, the Sabbath is Friday. You and I can go all across the world, and we could probably find some culture, some tribes, some people who celebrate the Sabbath on a Monday, on a Tuesday. Bottom line is the Sabbath is every day. Well, why do they tell you to remember the Sabbath? Take time out every day to recalibrate. Take time out every day to refocus. Take time out every day to to re-envision, to get re-centered, to re-engineer. Take time out every day to turn away that chaos and that confusion. And that's all it is. Just chaos and confusion. You never follow anybody in life who doesn't know where he or she is going.
There has to be a vision. There has to be a vision, otherwise the people just perish. Don't they?
Without a doubt.
You know.
And where's the vision? Well, the vision is on your heart. Hopefully it's on your heart. There's a huge difference between sight and vision.
Yeah.
Sight is a function of the eyes. Vision is a function of creativity, of the imagination. It's in your heart. Out of the heart comes the issues of life.
Yeah.
So when we talk about someone who's blind or someone who's needs glasses or needs a prosthesis, we say that they're visually impaired. But that's the wrong terminology. Anybody who doesn't have a vision, we should say is visually impaired.
Yeah. Isn't that famous Helen Keller saying when she says that is worse than not having physical sight is not having, the vision or a goal or, a purpose in life. So it's like, having.
So how much time do you spend on a daily basis in creative visualization? I do it all the time, right before I go to bed, as soon as I wake up.
Yeah, that's the best time to do it. That's the best time.
As soon as I wake up, I don't care when I'm walking. I have no problem saying this is not me. This is not me. This is not my state. This is not who I am. I know where I should be. Yep. So there, and here it is. In my entrepreneurship class, well, I did it for all of my business communication. Top B schools at one time, the top business programs here in the United States, would ensure that their students read these following 2 books, right?
Yeah.
Here's one of them. Go online and order this book.
The Go-Getter.
The Go-Getter.
Yeah.
Order it as soon as you wake up tomorrow.
Okay.
It is only 62 pages. Peter Kine, and Kine is spelled K-Y-N-E. Peter B. Kine.
Yeah.
Not going to tell you. I'll tell you a little bit what it's about, but mine is all. It's a story of a World War I veteran who was injured during the war. He's partly disabled, and he's looking for a job. And he goes to this lumber yard, and this lumber yard has they're hiring for salesmen. So he applies for the job and walks in there, and they see that he's disabled and blah, blah, blah. And they say, man, this guy's not going to work out and blah, blah, blah. And one of the owners, well, the owner has a good feeling about him. He says, there's something about him that I like, but I think we got to give him the test of the blue vase, like a blue flower vase.
Yeah.
And it's about that test. And that's all I'm going to tell you about it. The next time you and I chat, we'll talk about what you learned from the go-getter. Get the blue vase. So that's number one. The other book really isn't a book. It's a short story. You can go online right now. Won't cost you a cent. It's by H.G. Wells. H as in Harry, G as in good, Wells. W-E-L-L-S. You probably read it. And if you haven't read it, I need to know why you haven't read it.
Okay.
It's called Country of the Blind.
I haven't read that.
Country of the Blind.
Blind. I feel like I'm in your classroom, Professor Kimbro.
Country of the Blind. I'm gonna just give you the quick backflap story, then you can go ahead and read it. But it's the story of a group of explorers that live on this island. In the middle of an island is a mountain. And theory has it, or, wise tales or whatever, gossip has it, that no one lives on the other side of the mountain. In other words, these explorers feel that they are the only inhabitants of this island. Well, one day, one of the explorers climbs the mountain. And when he gets to the top of the mountain, he slips and falls on the other side of the mountain. And what does he see? That the island is inhabited. There's people and they're performing and they're working and everybody just like normal folks, just like you and I. But as he approaches them, what does he discover about them? These are people who are born, they look just like me and you, but they don't have the eyes on the outside of their head. Their head and their face, where you and I have eyes, is totally smooth. And he's saying to himself, they act like normal people. They're working, they're talking, they're shopping, and blah, blah, what in the world is going on? They've adapted to a life without sight.
Oh.
And when he interacts with them, he tries to explain the process of vision to them. And that's just the beginning of the story. It's a short story. You can read it in one night.
How can you describe a vision?
Now, why would I share those two books and stories with you?
Yeah, why?
Because the go-getter, there are 10 different forms of wealth, all right? And the only form of wealth that I had that allowed me, outside of the Lord and Savior, that allowed me to reach my goals and objectives was persistence. Persistence is one of the 10 forms of wealth. I wouldn't quit.
I know
all
that.
I had was persistence, so that's all I could use. So whenever somebody told me no or whatever, I said, okay, thank you very much. Let me just move on. That's all I have. I can't give anything else. So that's the go-getter.
Yes.
Persistence.
Persistence is huge in your book because it's funny, I was looking at that today. The story about Earl Graves.
Yeah. Young man, you should be in sales if you're not.
Yeah.
Yep. I wasn't going to write that book without Earl Graves.
You never gave up because I can't do the book without him in my book.
Yeah.
But even from day one, people were saying to you, don't write this book. No one's going to read it. And you went ahead and with your persistence, and every time you tried to get hold of Earl Graves, he's too busy, but thank you very much.
He's this, he's that. And see, what you got to put it in context, because the first individual I went after was John Johnson of Ebony Magazine.
Yeah.
And it took me close to more than 2 years, close to 3 years to finally interview him. But I interviewed him twice.
Oh.
See, the reason why I wanted to go after him, because in terms of entrepreneurship and business development, he was #1 on the pecking order. Now, folks would say, well, who have you interviewed? If I told them I interviewed John Johnson, everybody else would fall in line. But
Yeah.
so I had to keep going and say, man, Johnson, come on, bro, come on, man, let's go make it easier. So that's what took 7 years, man,
Wow.
getting all those interviews together. But they could never take it from me.
Yeah.
So #1, persistence.
Go get it.
And the other form of wealth is vision. And that's where Country of the Blind comes in. You're gonna use one or the other, baby girl.
Yeah.
You're gonna use one. You can't get around it. There is no way to get around it.
You have to have that, because if you haven't got persistence, when you come up against the challenges, you could just easily just give up.
Oh yeah.
There has to be something burning within you, the burning desire to keep you going, because with you said it. You said, if you could get, for example, John Johnson, then it could be the key to opening a lot of other things.
Yep.
And interestingly, the story that when you got hold of Earl Grey is that it came from an indirect place, didn't it? Because there was some kind of anniversary, wasn't there? He had a wedding anniversary, exactly, and a big party.
Wedding anniversary.
Yeah. And
his 25th wedding anniversary.
And this is the lesson for all of us, because I come across people who, they say they haven't got a burning desire, or that's the hard part. And so that's linked with persistence, isn't it? Faith and persistence, they're linked. So when people say, I haven't got a burning desire, then what would you say the reason for that is?
Well, I mean, we all have, and that's up to the individual. I can't give that to you. You can't buy it, you can't borrow it, you can't steal it. But you'll know when you've got a burning desire, because it won't let you go. And I've said it 50 million times, we all have desires to do something, but a burning desire is an inner candle, an inner flame that cannot be extinguished. And that's the calling card of a burning desire, when it won't let you go. This I have to do, this I gotta possess, this is where I have to go, I'm sorry. And you look and you reflect on your age, okay? So you're 20 years old, you think you know everything. You're 30 years old, life is okay, but sooner or later you might get your hands spanked. You're 40 years old, they knock the wind out of your sails. You're 50 years old, and by the time you get to 50, you don't care what people say about you. You don't care what they think about you. If they like you, don't like you, love you, don't love you. You care less. You say, I got something inside of me that I have got to accomplish, to hell with everything else.
Yeah. That's where the wisdom comes in. It would be good if at a younger age we could have that wisdom that we have when we're older, because we think people are thinking about us, but they're not. They're just thinking about themselves most of the time, because we're talking to ourselves most of the time,